Hi, I'm Jefferson Drexler, and this is Parent Like You Mean It, the podcast where we talk about parenting with intentionality today, so hopefully we can see great results in our kids tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, without all the crazy surprises that may come our way. We're not intentional. So, my wife and I were recently shopping for a new car for our family. And I know, before you start commenting on how this is the absolute worst time in American history to be buying a car, you also got to admit that it's the worst time in American history to be driving around a 8-passenger gas guzzler. Anyway, I started searching. I started searching 50 miles from my house, then 250 miles from my house, 500 miles from my house, nationwide. I spoke and emailed with salespeople over 3,000 miles away from my home looking for the best deal available. And without a single exception, each sales rep guaranteed me that they'd find me a really great deal on the car that I was looking for. Well, when all was said and done, as we were pulling our new car into the driveway, my son asked me, "Dad, did we get a good deal?" Well, all I could tell him was, "Well, buddy, we got the best deal that was out there because it was the only deal out there. We paid more than I wanted to, but less than other people were stuck paying. And at least I don't have to factor in the price of a nationwide 3,000-mile long road trip into the purchase price." My point is that the phrase "a really good deal on your next car" has so many meanings that it really has no meaning at all. It's like the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, or any football team in history of the league for that matter. If you see, they've got 3 solid quarterbacks, all vying for the QB1 spot. And if you have 3 quarterbacks, it means that you really have 0. That's right, you don't have a starting quarterback. Look, if you're offering me a great deal on accessories that I don't need, or a great deal compared to luxury cars that I'm not shopping for, or a great deal featuring local Connecticut incentives that don't apply to me here in California, the words "great deal" have so many definitions that the words simply lack all true meaning. What's worse is when the car dealerships start making up new word combinations to further complicate things. Switching gears for a second, follow me. When I recently went to a nice restaurant, I was told what the specials were, how they were prepared, and how much they would cost. And when I asked if accommodations could be made for us, they replied, well, yes or no, and how much more that might cost. Then when the bill showed up at the end of the meal, guess what? That's the amount that was shown at the bottom of the bill. Of course, it was up to me regarding how much I wanted to add for gratuity, but the bottom line of what was expected of me was clearly written in black and white. Now, moving back to my car buying experience, I saw the car that I wanted. I saw what the manufacturer's suggested retail price was. And by the way, the word "suggested" isn't really a suggestion, but more a starting point. Then I asked if there were any accommodations that could be made for us. But unlike the steak and swordfish combo, I got a series of word salad that seemed to be English, but in reality were just a bunch of connected syllables without true meaning. I asked, "So how much does the car cost?" "Well, here's our MSRP, plus there'll be about $1,000 in factory upgrades." "Okay, so $1,000 above MSRP. "Well, then there's about $2,000 in dealership upgrades on top of that." "Okay, well," I said, "can you not do those and then keep the price at $1,000 above MSRP?" "Well, no, they're done at the dealership." Wait, aren't you the dealership?" "Well, yeah," he said, "but I'm in sales. That happens at receiving." "Okay, so we're talking $3,000 above MSRP then." "Well, no, then there are taxes, fees, licensing, and other costs that can..." "Okay, so how much do those add up to?" "It depends." "It depends on what? On what day it is?" But then there are rebates and incentives and tax breaks that will bring your price down." "Well, do you have a trade-in for us?" "Okay, well, how much do those add up to?" "It depends." "Depends on what?" Our conversations went round and round like this with one dealership after another. Well, as my brother, who worked in the car industry for years, he put it this way. He said, "You just got to know how to play the game." Well, why is it a game in the first place? There's no game to play when I buy something at Target. There's no games to play at my son's favorite skate shop. There's not even a game to play when I book international travel. The only games out there seem to be when we're spending money on the 3 most significant purchases of our lives: cars, homes, and engagement rings. My point is that it's incredibly difficult to communicate and agree upon anything if we don't share the same definitions. And if you're like a car salesman, when they keep changing the definition of the word price or great deal, then we'll never be able to have a purposeful conversation, nor even begin to understand one another. So all this brings me to Ukraine, of course, right? So as I turn back the clock, way back to 2020, less than 2 years ago, I remember reading about some stuff that had to do with Ukraine. There were headlines out there that had something to do with someone who is corrupt, someone else's son who may have been even more corrupt, some possibly corrupt company located in Ukraine, and it all seemed to stem from a disregarded laptop. But according to our major news outlets and social media platforms, these headlines weren't credible. They were labeled as misinformation. What the heck is misinformation? When a teenager says that he was just out with friends watching a movie last night, then he comes home and he fails an at-home drug test, was his movie story misinformation? No. Dude lied. Misinformation is about as valid of a word as MSRP. It's an English word, complete with a prefix, a root, and a suffix, but it's meaningless. When the news agencies said that Hunter's laptop stories were misinformation, they meant that these stories were lies, falsehoods, made-up fiction. But as it turned out, they were the liars all along. And now, here we are 2 years later, and the word misinformation is surrounding Ukraine again. Russians are spreading misinformation about the ongoing war. Zelensky is spreading misinformation about the perspectives on the Ukrainians on the ground. Psaki is spreading misinformation about what the White House plans to do or can do or won't do in support of Ukraine. China is spreading misinformation about their role in funding Russia. There is literally so much usage of the word misinformation that actually no actual information is being shared. So, why don't we go back to the language that we learned in kindergarten? It's not misinformation. It's lies. MSNBC called the New York Post liars. Psaki called Putin a liar. Putin called Zelensky a liar. Lies, lies, lies. Now, it's up to each of us to examine each of these perspectives and try to determine which stories are true and which ones are lies. You see, the word misinformation lends a half ounce of credibility to whatever is being said simply by inferring that the story has some sort of information in it. If you told me that you flew to Mars and back, that wouldn't be some sort of distorted information. It would be false. It would be a lie. But you see, if I label lies as misinformation, then when I knowingly lie to your face, my falsehoods can simply be referred to as misinformation as well. Then neither of us are liars. We just have our own truths to live by. And all that is partly why we're in such a mess here today. We can't even agree on what is true and what is a lie. We can't communicate with an agreed upon language. We can't agree on empirical facts. And because of all this, even when we think we might be in agreement, we really aren't. We're back to the price of the car, playing a game instead of engaging in meaningful interpersonal communication. So next time you hear someone say MSRP or misinformation, you need to respond like little Arnold Jackson did and ask, "What you talking about, Willis?" We need to stop the made-up words like misinformation or its cousin disinformation or equity, non-binary, Latinx or Latinx, however they're pronouncing it these days, or other neo-pronouns. Instead, we need to ask, what do you mean by that? And then seek understanding using our common language. If something is empirically truthful, it's true. If it's a subjective take, it's an opinion. And if it's false, presented as truth, it's a lie. It's really not that difficult. And when we communicate simply and truthfully, we can then easily determine which directions to move in, whether it be in Ukraine, at the car dealership, or in our own home. Well, that's all I've got this week. Hopefully, you know which direction to go to, and that direction should be to ChristianPodcastCentral.com. Check us out on YouTube and subscribe to our channel, or check out our website, ChristianPodcastCentral.com, where you're going to find more Parent Like You Mean It. Also, old episodes of my old podcast, Real Stuff My Dad Says. Plus, there's so many other amazing shows out there. We really want to lift you up, entertain, encourage, and inform you as we can. So, check it out. And until next time, thank you so much.